Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Expanders Club podcast, a place where we talk health, wellness, growth, spirituality, mysticism, all the fun things that one could encounter on this life journey, this journey to expansion, whatever you want to call it. We're here. We're here to keep things interesting. And if you've been hanging out with us and been listening, you may notice that there have been some changes, or the changes are happening. If you're new and this is your first episode, welcome. So grateful to have you. And let me tell you a little bit about those changes. So usually there's a lovely Australian here with me, Maddie. She was my co-host up until last week. Maddie has moved on, not in a bad way, in a really positive way, actually, for both of us. We're kind of stepping into big, beautiful directions, and I felt like the right move. So you guys are stuck with me. Hopefully I can deliver some interesting and fun content, and I know I can. We have a bunch of really interesting stuff coming up, some really interesting guests, some conversations. We will probably, I'm not going to lie, we'll probably start to head a little more in the mysticism, spiritual evolution direction, because I am on a rocket ship into other dimensions and through my own expansion and different levels of consciousness. And I'm feeling called to share that experience with all of you. And I think a lot of you are too, or a lot of you are ready to step onto that rocket ship. So welcome. This is my first solo episode. I'm going to try not to ramble too much, try and keep everything succinct, get you guys the information that's important, and let you go on with your day. But bear with me. Give me a little bit of grace in this first solo. It is weird talking to yourself. Grateful for any of you who are following along on social media, especially Instagram through the Expanders Club, or my personal social media, _Brooke_Harris. I made a really big announcement about a week and a half ago, and it has been life-changing. I'm like ready to tear up just talking about it. I think I even look a little bit different. Like, I feel like I look a little bit younger. I feel like literally the moment I shared the information publicly, I felt like 3 pounds of weight just lifted off of me. So that's really exciting. And that information was that I am an oracle, and I am psychic, and I have the ability to use my psychic skills to help myself and help others. So I got a lot of questions, and understandably, I think for most of you who know me, I have been in the business world for over a decade. I have started and run my own companies. I am currently the CEO of a business that I started that has had some success. And, I've done all the traditional stuff. I've fundraised, I've led teams. It's in CPG and wellness, which actually is a pretty traditional space. So to some of you, this may have come as a surprise, and to others, maybe not at all. Because, it's hard for those things not to seep into every part of your life. I think as women, especially, we do compartmentalize ourselves a bit. This is how I show up as a mom. This is how I show up in work. This is how I show up in my personal life. This is how I show up for my husband. Maybe this is how I show up when I'm alone, and no one really gets to see this side. And that's certainly what I was doing. And man, it is exhausting I'm sure a lot of you can relate, or maybe just sit there and think about that and start to realize how you're compartmentalizing yourself and not bringing your whole self to all parts because, well, for a lot of reasons. Especially if you're a woman. A lot of times we don't feel allowed to bring our whole selves. We feel judged. We feel not enough. We feel like no one wants to hear or see those parts of us. But I think a lot of times the parts we keep hidden are our superpowers. And that most certainly is the case for me. And I've pulled out these superpowers, whether I've been fully conscious about it or not, so many times in my business. Like, there are endless amount of freaking miracles that have happened for my business. Things that are completely inexplicable, like receiving money randomly at the last moment before we had to close the doors multiple times. There's just a lot of magic that's happened with my business, and some maybe we'll call it luck, but really a lot of the things that have happened have kind of come out of the blue, like manifestations. So there's always been some magic and spirituality in my business, but now it is going to be much more intentional and much more a part of how we operate and run the business. So all that to say, I'm bringing all parts of me to all places moving forward. And I think that alone will be very interesting to navigate. And it would be interesting no matter what those parts of me were. But even more interesting because I am making this declaration that I'm psychic. And not only am I psychic, I'm an oracle. And so let's dive into what the heck that means. I think you all know what psychic means. One thing along this journey that has surprised me that I didn't really realize until, kind of operating in this world a little bit more is that a lot of people associate psychics with the dead, with having an ability to talk to dead loved ones and bring messages forward. And I guess a lot of them kind of that is what and all that they do. That is not what my purpose as a psychic is. It is something that I have experienced. And I think if I put more attention to it, I could do it very easily and pretty regularly. I've experienced dead people my entire life in different ways. More on that another time. But usually it's more of like me being like, okay, can you please leave me alone? Could you please go away now? Like, I would like my space. So I never really looked at it as a positive thing until I had a few readings with people that were not meant to be focused around past loved ones, but past loved ones were brought up in the readings and they showed up. And I got to see them and describe them and feel their connection to the person and feel the feelings they had, and share messages that really resonated. And that was really beautiful. But that's not the kind of psychic I want to be on a regular basis. Like, I don't want to only channel past loved ones. If it comes up and there's a message that's super important for someone or that needs to be shared, cool, I'm game. I'm here to be a channel for that. But there are psychics that's kind of their number one gig. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that's not what I feel super called for. I'm still trying to figure out even how I understand our relationship to past loved ones and the messages they have to share, and like what they're actually, what their spirits are actually doing, where they actually are, what the whole process is. So I'll give you some more insight when I figure what all of that is. But short story is I can channel and experience past loved ones, and I have. But the type of psychic that I want to be, and I think best serves, is really more future looking, empowering, and not future looking and like, hey, what are the lottery numbers going to be or who's going to win the Super Bowl? I haven't even thought to try to figure out those things, but maybe I'll dabble in some of it a little bit. I don't know that. I don't know how that really serves anyone's evolution or spiritually. So yeah, not sure. But I want to talk to you about purpose. I want to share information that empowers you to understand your path, empowers you to, have clarity, to be clear about relationships, about your work, about your business, about your health, about anything that's really coming up. I really am more of an empowerment psychic. So I want to bring you information to prepare you for your future, to help you understand what the future could look like, to help you understand your superpowers, your purpose, why you're here on this planet at this time, how to manage things in your daily life. Kind of like, I guess how I would really describe it is really a spiritual advisor. So with my business, we've had advisors through the years, right? And those advisors or the board of advisors, I go to them for random things. Like they all kind of have different specialties, and I'll go to them for advice and insight on things that I have less experience about, or give them updates on what's going on in the business so that they can fill in the holes and help, connect the dots in a way that I don't have the perspective on. And so that's kind of what this is. I am your spiritual advisor. I meet with your board of advisors, my board of advisors, which are our guides, angels, teachers, masters, loved ones. And I bring in information from other levels of consciousness, other dimensions that will help you along your journey. And it's really that simple. So the oracle term came about. This is not, oracle is not the name that I chose. I knew that I was psychic and had this ability to tap into different levels of consciousness. But the word oracle was given to me by my guides, or told to me by my guides, and who also told me like, hey, you will be using different modalities to service people. So to me, that is what my definition of a modern oracle is, which a modern oracle is what I've kind of branded this brand, whatever it is, we'll see where it goes. But a modern oracle is someone who, like I said, is a spiritual advisor and can assess whatever your situation is, whatever your needs, and then has a plethora of tools that she uses, that I use, to help get you the most impactful answers and information to move you along your way, or help you resolve your questions, issues, concerns, help you thrive, help you embrace your own expansion, help you level up into new dimensions. So what that looks like right now, kind of my main tools, I am studying some really cool stuff that I'll happily share with you guys once I've completed. But right now, what a session looks like, so you can book in sessions with me. Now, I've done many and had some really, really incredible experiences for both the person that I'm reading for and myself. I've seen other dimensions in these readings. I've felt love, this like intense love between them and their past loved ones. I've seen with real clarity their purpose, their next steps for their job, their next steps for their relationships, their past lifetimes, that things they've carried in from past lifetimes that they need to resolve. So a reading can really go anywhere and everywhere. It goes wherever there's information that you need to hear. And it's my guides and your guides that help me figure that out. So how it works, you sign up for a session on my website. They're called Oracle Sessions, or on my booking link. My website's not ready yet. Through my booking link, you sign up for an Oracle session. And when you sign up, there's a few questions that I ask you. kind of generally around what you want out of our time together, what's most pressing and on your mind, and then maybe a few specific questions that you have for your guides. And then I take that information and we meet for an hour. It is really probably about a 2 to 2.5 hour process for me. I take that information to my guides. I channel messages from them. I pull cards from you. I pull tarot. I pull oracle cards, and I channel messages from those. And so I have this really good foundation of information, a place to start. To me, that is absolutely tapping into a different level of consciousness. And it's maybe, if we are here in our very basic human world at like 3, they say we're in the 3rd dimension. So if we're in the 3rd dimension, you can think of this as like the 6th or 7th dimension. I don't know how many dimensions there are, but I'm just trying to give some kind of visual understanding. I'll let you know when I do know how many dimensions there are. And then, so I have all this information. I come prepared. We get on Zoom together for an hour, and I come prepared. I already have a lot of information. I may have some information about your past lives. I definitely have some information about like some lessons and information you need for your current lifetime or your current situation. I have information that to share with you about your future and where you're going. So I come with this like 6th or 7th dimension consciousness messages. And then when we get on together, I open the Akashic Records, and we are in those for about 40 minutes. And the Akashic Records are essentially a record of all souls through all lifetimes, all timelines, all possibilities. So a lot of people say, it's kind of like a spiritual Google. You can essentially ask any questions, and you'll get answers. And we go into the Akashic Records and we call in your specific masters, teachers, and loved ones. And we start to have a conversation with them. We start to ask them questions, and they give a lot of information. And this is where it gets wild because I never know where it's going to go. And this is the work for me, is to kind of drop my logical brain, kind of stop. It's an interesting balance because I have to think, because I have to process the information that they're saying. They give information at such a high level that I then have to process it to spit it out in a way that makes sense on the human level, and is digestible and easy to understand. And they're also telling me a lot. So I can't really repeat word for word. It's like I'm kind of putting it all together and sharing it in a way that can make sense. So I need my brain a little bit for that. And that's where the practice has come in, is I need to be able to have my brain turned on for that. But then I need to hear and see their messages very clearly and completely unbiased. So I'm channeling information from them while kind of processing it so that I can say it in a way that makes sense. And it's wild. Anything and everything can happen up there. Certainly we get answers. We have different, I never know which, we all have different types of guides, and most of us have many of them. And so I never know which one's going to show up, or who's going to show up. They take me forward, they take me backward. If we need to look at past lives, we do that, and they give me information there. If they need to give me information about relationships and how they're impacting you or how they need to change, we do that. And we start to have a conversation with them. So they'll give us information, you'll ask questions, and they answer. And it's pretty wild. And like I said, I've had, loved ones who have passed on come through while we're in the records. Usually, to my experience so far, anytime someone brings up a loved one who's passed on, they love to show up, which from hearing from other psychics, that seems to kind of be the MO of the deceased. They love to be remembered and love to come hang out, and it doesn't take much to beckon them forward. So My experience so far, I'm not to say that that's going to be every time, but if you need to hear a message from a loved one, they come through and share a message for you. It's a pretty mind-blowing experience, and I'm just like kind of laughing at myself right now as I'm saying this all so casually, because it's easy to say in this way where I'm recounting what happens to you, right? Because this is my experience. But also, at the same time, I'm in there doing this. And literally, you guys, the information that comes, like, this is not stuff that I could have known. And I've done this for people I know. I've done this for people I'm close with, people I'm acquaintances with, and people that I don't really know. And every time the information is mind-blowing. It's almost hardest doing it for people that you know really well or someone that you're close with. It takes a lot more mental energy because it's a lot more blocking out your own stuff versus if it's someone that you don't even know. It's like I'm just able to share really freely because I don't know how it's going to impact their life. Like I don't know anything. I'm just sharing the message. So, and every time it is mind-blowing. This is not stuff I know. This is not stuff I have experience with. It is not my words. It's incredible. And every time I come out and I'm like, holy shit, that's so real. Also, you guys, there's a lot of healing energy that happens when you're in the Akashic Record. So just in general, yes, you get a ton of information, but just in general too, there's this healing that happens and people you just come out feeling really good and light and better about life and much more optimistic. And I experience that same thing. I experience healing when I'm in there reading your records. I also, for me, unfortunately, I've noticed that I take on when I'm reading for you, like before when I'm prepping as well, I can take on a lot of your energy. So if you're feeling sad or heavy or anxious, I can feel that energy in my body. And so I get to experience kind of the release in the same way that you do. And I get to experience how my clients feel after a reading because I'm like their emotional weight is lifted off of me as well. So it's pretty cool. And also, like I said, this is 1000% real and just happening. And I have very little to do with it other than I am open to receiving and I'm willing to expand my consciousness. And still, within a few hours after the reading, every time I'm just like, holy shit, like, was that real? How could that be real? Like, how could that be real? But it is. And it's a lot of fun. And man, it is just incredibly rewarding work as well. I'm going to tear up here. Like I have always felt strongly, and my missions in my business have always been about empowering people. I truly, truly believe so much in the power of the individual, and I see how we give our power away constantly. Like speaking from experience, right? I've experienced it myself. And I've always had the skill to see, to see the superpowers and see the real version of others. And to be able to share information with people in this way and empower them in such a like mind-blowing, impactful way is like, it's so cool and it's so rewarding and I'm so freaking grateful for it. So yes, that is what an oracle session is. And that's my current offering. More to come on that though, right? Like I'm just kind of putting this out there to start. I am still running a business and I'm a mom and a wife, and so life is busy. But there's going to be a lot more to come, different types of session, maybe some different types of healing, hint, energetic healing, that I'm really excited about. And who knows what this is going to evolve into. And right now it's just a time for me to really have fun, really impact people on an individual level, and help people believe in the magic of life, the magic of the unseen, the power of the energy around us, the power of ourselves and each of us. So I'm really excited to do that. I did have a few questions that came up on Instagram that I thought I would answer on here just because I think these are natural questions that come up. And so one of the questions was, how did you know you had this gift? And I would say that's complicated. Certainly there are many times in life as a kid that I felt it. Not that I felt like I was psychic, but I felt like I just knew. Like I had a really tough childhood, but I always knew that everything was going to be okay. Like I knew that it was temporary and that my adult life was going to be great. And it has been. I knew that, I always felt like I had someone with me or multiple someones, like guides. And I've had guides like watch my back in many ways over the years. But about eight or so years ago, I learned about the Akashic Records, and I had an Akashic Record reading, and I was blown away. It's like, how is this working? This information is wild and feels so real and so true. And so I took a course. This was an in-person course on reading the Akashic Records, what they are, how to expand your consciousness to be able to read them. There's an opening prayer that you do and a closing prayer. And so understanding that, there's a lot of other pieces that go along with it, and like your own personal life and behavior. I forget the rules now because I don't drink or do drugs. But it's like something like you can't drink like 3 days or a week before, nothing that's impairing essentially your consciousness and your ability to deliver messages clearly. You can't do. There's some other things that just aren't relevant to me in my life now. But then you use this opening prayer and you can access the records of anyone, anything really. Like I open them for my business. And it gives me a ton of great information. And so I did this course. And when it came time, it's interesting reading for yourself, right? Because obviously your head gets in the way. And when I read for myself, I like to just record myself so I can just kind of channel and speak out loud like I would to a client. And then I'll listen back to it and take my notes, because a lot of times I'll come out and I won't fully remember the details, even with client readings. If something wild happens, I will remember that, like with the one client, I saw into other dimensions, and like, I'll never freaking forget that. That was so crazy, and incredible. But some of the more basic stuff, I don't always recall perfectly. So I will record myself and listen back and take notes when I do my own. And so I've been opening my own Akashic Records for 8 years. However, in this program, I opened, one of the exercises was they matched you up with a random stranger, and there were only 10 or 12 people in the class or something. And it was over the course of 3 or 4 days. And they paired me up with someone I had never met. And she tells me her name, and that's it. That's all the information you get. And I opened her records, and you guys, I saw everything. I saw her career, her future career. I saw the trajectory of it. I saw what was holding her back. I saw the relationship she needed to heal. And I'm sharing all this. I'm bawling, telling her all this, because it is a very emotional experience. You feel a lot of their emotion. You feel the love and healing coming down from the Akashic Records. This girl also sobbing across from me because all of this was so dead on. I literally knew nothing about this person, and I nailed every single little detail. And I was like, holy shit, okay, this is real. And also it's kind of intimidating. And so that was 8 years ago, and I didn't open another person's Akashic Records until a year ago. I'd opened mine plenty and played in that, and I had a full career that kept me very busy, and kind of didn't think about potentially sharing this with others or making a career out of it. I also it's a little intimidating. And I think especially when you're new too, it does take a lot of energy to go into a different dimension, you can imagine. And I think I think I was skipping dimensions. Like there were a lot more dimensions in between me and the Akashic Records. And actually, this is what I was going to say when I said earlier that my channeling and psychic work feels like it's at like dimension 6 or 7 or 8, maybe. The Akashic Records feel like they're at like dimension 20. So it is like a very expanded consciousness. And so it's a little bit of a journey for me to get there, and if I'm already in my daily life at like a 4 or 5 level of consciousness, that's not so bad. But when I think when I originally was opening the Akashic Records, I was at a much lower level. And it was just like a journey. And it was exhausting. And it's become much less exhausting. It still is a massive amount of energy that it takes to get there. But it's so worth it. And I've learned techniques to protect my energy and kind of, call it back and ground myself and all like pre and post practices to make it way less draining on me. So all that to say, like, I opened my own Akashic Records for years, but kind of like was intimidated to really dive into it until like I had my dark night of the soul, I guess, God, what was it now? Almost 2 years ago. And, it was a time to call on all the tools I had ever had. Because I needed them. I didn't know what to do. And the Akashic Records was one of them. And so I started opening my own Akashic Records more regularly, getting wild and crazy information. My favorite experience is opening it inside of a labyrinth. I went on this little like solo trip to a place down in Palm Springs, and they had a labyrinth. And I had never experienced a labyrinth. They're incredibly powerful. And this one was especially, and I would open my Akashic Records while walking the labyrinth, and it was literally like direct access to this. Like the information was coming through so clearly, so specifically, so quickly. It was almost like it was all my own thoughts, but it was things that I definitely didn't have information about. So that was really cool. And then I had a girlfriend who had been bothering me for years to open her Akashic Records, and she was going through a lot, kind of her own dark night of the soul, and I felt like I could maybe offer something to help her. And I started doing some readings for her. And dude, the first readings must have been so annoying for her because it's literally me just describing what I'm seeing. I'm like, holy shit, you have this many guides. They're doing these moves. They're dancing. They're waving. Like, okay, now this one's coming in with this accent. I think it was useful for her, but it was just like me still sitting there being like, holy shit, kind of well in the records. I don't do that anymore. I do feel that way sometimes, but I have much more experience now. So I opened her records a few times, and it was intoxicating for me. It was this like high of like, whoa, a lot of things like, whoa, there's more going, like I can literally see more than what I can see with my eyes, and it's fucking real and incredible. And it was like, okay, this really helped her. It was just like an afterglow like you've never experienced. And so I started doing it for others. I'm like offering it to random people, not random, but acquaintances. And it started to evolve, and I offered it to I have a couple mentors and teachers in the spiritual world, started offering it to them, kind of being like, kind of almost for like validation, like, okay, if this feels real to them, then this is real, right? Like they're in this world, they know these things, they have special abilities themselves. So if they give me the thumbs up, then like then I can give myself the thumbs up. And those readings, when someone has like a truly high level of consciousness, it is wild where a reading can go. So those readings were really fun, and just started to feel confident, not only because of what I was seeing and experiencing, but the feedback from clients experiencing it. And I've kind of been living and breathing it for the past 6 months or so. And I've just become really in love with the magic that it brings to life. And it makes me feel alive of just being able to tap into these different levels of consciousness and then apply it to life. Makes life so much more fun, so much more magical, so much more almost like sensible. Like it just like everything makes more sense, you know? I think a lot of times for me personally, I would find myself in these moments of like, is this what life is about? Like, is this it? Like, there has to be more, right? There has to be more than like getting up every day, doing our job, cooking dinner, doing laundry, putting the kids to bed, going to bed, waking up, doing it all over again. And like, what's the purpose? You know, there has to be more purpose than like for a paycheck or a few vacations here and there. And like, I just found myself asking that a lot. Like, what else is there? There has to be more to life. So I'm happy to report that there is. There is a lot more. And I think knowing and understanding other dimensions and other levels of consciousness, and like, so I have so much more to learn, but just the bit I've tapped into, it makes this level of consciousness, this being in this physical world, it makes it feel actually way more special. And we'll tap into another time, like all of that, like the reasons for us being in these human bodies, the purpose, the goals, what happens next, all of that. We'll talk about that down the road. But I'm in a place where I'm starting to realize like, oh, I've gone from, you guys, many times I've been like, take me home, someone come get me, take me off this goddamn planet and take me to my home. Like, I have felt that way many times in life, literally, like, I don't belong here. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. This is too weird. It doesn't make any sense. And my perspective from that has started to shift to like, wow, how cool that I get to experience these things in this way, in a physical body, the whole roller coaster of emotions, the beauty of life, the hardships of life, the learnings, the lessons, like how freaking cool. And like, I'm not fully there yet, right? In every moment, but having the information and the experience I have like made me have much more appreciation for this physical form and the life that we get to lead in these physical bodies. And I think we need to do a whole nother podcast on that. Yeah. So one more thing that I want to kind of share, and again, I think this could be a whole podcast episode too, but someone asked, do you see figures? And I think the general feeling of that was like, how does it work? Like, what's happening for you, for me? And the answer is a lot is happening and different things at different times, but I kind of look at it as like almost an extension of my senses. And there are technical words like clairvoyant, claircognizant, like there are different terms actually for these things, but like the simplified version is like heightened senses, very heightened. So I do see things. Not always perfectly like how you would see them with your eyes open, like out in the world, but I do have visuals pretty much always. There's some kind of visual happening for me. I hear things. So I'll hear messages. They come in, they come in through my right ear, but actually what I've learned for me anyway, is like the guides, masters, teachers, loved ones, higher beings all come in through my right ear. And then someone who has deceased, especially if they've like recently deceased, at least that's been my experience, they come in with their messages through my left ear. And they come in physically on my left side. I feel tingling on my left side when they come in. I'll often feel a temperature change on that left side. All things that I had no idea would happen until they happened, right? there's a knowing, especially with channeling. In the Akashic Records, there's a knowing, but a lot of times it's more of like hearing and seeing. When I'm channeling or just doing psychic work in general, I just a lot of times just have a knowing. And it's taken me a lot of work to be able to trust that knowing, because it does feel like it appears out of nowhere. I guess taste isn't really one that I've experienced, but the basics, like seeing, hearing, knowing, feeling, that's all happening. Sometimes at the same time, sometimes at different times. Yeah. I mean, I've had experience with past, I guess we would call them ghosts. I don't know. Like, I've had experiences with dead people in my space. Like, I've had passed on people in apartments that I've lived in. When I was at my sister's this summer, there was someone who had passed I was sleeping in her guest room, and it's a newer house that she moved in. You guys, this is kind of creepy. So she had moved into, she and her husband bought her grandparents' house. And her grandparents had both just had passed pretty recently. The bed that they had me sleeping in was her husband's grandfather's bed, who had kind of passed recently too, or like had come from a house that he had. So I didn't know that until after. Also, her dogs had just passed. So and we actually had a call about the house with my friend Kate, who you guys may have heard of on this podcast. She is a psychic and tarot reader, and she reads homes, and we had a call with her, and she like verified that the grandparents were hanging around. But before she verified that, literally the night before, and then for almost every night after, we were there for 10 days. And so like 6 of the nights or something, someone would freaking, in the middle of the night, would shake my bed. So it was interesting because they had 2 separate beds frames like pushed together to kind of make one bed. So 2 separate mattresses. So my husband technically was in a separate bed. So he, of course, doesn't get disturbed. Dude's sleeping through the night like a baby. And I am waking up every night to someone literally, if you're watching this on YouTube, I am like shaking, like vigorously shaking the bed to the point where the bed is hitting the wall. The headboard is hitting the wall and making a noise. No one there. Middle of the night. This is like 3 a.m. To the point where I'd have to be like, okay, please go away. Like, I'm not messing around. Like, I'm trying to sleep. Please go away. So yeah, that was weird. I don't know. I don't remember why we got on that tangent. I guess I was just saying, like, I've had plenty of experiences with ghosts, and not seeing them. I guess just knowing that they're there. I mean, I guess I've kind of seen them. I've in places like condos that we've lived in, and I've known that there's ghosts. I have seen them, but not like super clearly, but more of just like this at feeling their energy and feeling this energetic presence. And a lot of this too is, I mean, it all really is energy. That's why I'm diving into more energy work as well. But the energy tells you everything, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. Is that true? I think that's true, but I think energy cannot be destroyed. So like, of course there are very high possibilities that there's some energy shaking my bed at 3 a.m. and I didn't ask who it was because I didn't care. I'm hoping maybe it was the dogs, but I think it was actually my sister's grandfather. But part of it too is like if you give them attention and like see what they want to say and invite them in, then it's hard to get them to go away. So a lot of my intuition on that has just been to be like, okay, please go away. I'm not here looking to hang out with you. Yeah. So I'm not fully sure how we got on that tangent, but that was a weird and fun story. And that ghost is still in my sister's house, actually. She's had experiences with it too. Okay, guys, I think we're going to wrap this one up. I hope that there was a lot of useful information here, or at least like gave you a lay of the land for kind of what this next chapter looks like for me. When I shared, a lot of you kind of mentioned that you think that you might have some psychic abilities, or, a lot more people were curious about it than I thought. And I think one, in general, this is a time where the collective is kind of waking up to different levels of consciousness, to different knowings, to their own power, and releasing these like gurus or spiritual figures, and realizing like, hey, we actually individually hold a lot of power. We are the creators of our own world and our own universe. And I think a lot of you have gifts, whether it is psychic gifts or something else that is just like beyond kind of the norm. And I hope that through me sharing this experience in a way that I hope feels accessible, because, we're kind of on this journey together. Like I told you, I'm still like, well, yes, I believe it 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000%. And I know it's real, and it's as real as anything I can touch and show you. It still is also mind-blowing because I also have a human brain. So I am still kind of on this roller coaster, on this ride with you. And I'm just excited to share all that I'm learning, all that I'm experiencing, bring in messages that can maybe help a lot of you along your journey of awakening, of seeking, of knowing your own power. Yeah, you can follow along. I get certainly on Instagram. I did change my handle to _Brooke_Harris. So follow along there. Also, I'll be posting some stuff on the Expanders Club Instagram as it makes sense. I started a Substack, guys, and I'm having a lot of freaking fun. I went to school for writing for film and television, so I have a little bit of like creative writing skills, and I haven't certainly exercised those muscles in a long time. But I'm having a lot of fun, and I get a little bit more personal, a little more in depth on the Substack. So I think it's worth following along. I will link it. It is called A Modern Oracle. And if you feel called to book in a session, I would love, love, love to do a reading for you. There is a link in my bio on Instagram. I will also link it here. I am going to do a little discount code for you guys. Code FREEDOM will give you 30% off of a reading, and freedom, because hey, baby, we are stepping into our freedom, into our truest self. We have an eclipse coming up this week. Lots of cosmic energy assisting us in letting go of the old, letting go of old stories, old beliefs, old habits, old patterns, and releasing them once and for all, and truly stepping into our truest, fullest, most empowered, most free, joyful, loving self. The light beings that we are and came here to be. And I know that time with me and time in the Akashic Records can absolutely help you on that journey. So I wanted to kind of make it a no-brainer for you. So if you book, I'm going to have the code up for the whole month of October. Book something in October. You don't have to book it for October, but just book your session before the end of the month, and you'll get 30% off using code FREEDOM. All right. Whew. I love you guys. I am so grateful for this platform, for the opportunity to share in this way, for your support, your kindness, your love. Yeah. And I hope that I can help you all, even if it's in some little way, see and know your true power. All right. Because I can tell you, life is getting better by the second. Every moment I commit to showing up as my true self, life gets better. Things get easier. I feel more freedom. I feel more joy. Those are two of my biggest values. And I have a feeling life is about to get really freaking good. So stay tuned. All right. See you soon, guys. you.